Check. There we go. Check. Check.
No more questions to ask, and if there's still like a bit of time left,
Okay.
I won't make it half an hour if that's not what they want, but we'll try to keep the time lively.
So are the questions going to be live robot questions or are they going to come through?
They're gonna come from the students in the audience.
Okay. Okay. So there's no way to submit questions online or anything?
So,
Okay. Gotcha.
yeah, the students that are in the audience will ask questions. I'll ask questions if they don't have any.
Okay.
But
Sounds good. You let me know.
okay, I will see you.
Okay. Thank you.
started. All right. Can everyone hear me all right? All right. Actually, let's see if I can do a little.
Yeah, sure, if you don't mind. Check, check, check.
Yeah. All right. So we're going to go ahead and get started. Actually, I feel more comfortable talking like this. All right. So good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for coming out, to those of you who are joining us in the audience, and to those of us who are joining through Spinnaker Media. Thank you for staying in touch with the Presidential Search. So today we're going to have the opportunity to talk with our fourth finalist for the Presidential Search, Dr. David Szymanski. He is currently the Dean of the College of Business at the University of Cincinnati. Just to give you an introduction to who I am, in case you don't know, I'm Thomas Beecham, the Student Body President. I'll be moderating today's forum. The way it's going to work, as we've done for all the forums, each finalist gives up to 10 minutes of an introduction, talks about their vision, their experience, and whatever they feel is really important for you. And then after that, the students in the audience will get a chance to ask any questions they feel are relevant to the student body, relevant to what the students care about, what kind of issues you're concerned with. So I ask that the students asking questions, you go ahead and introduce yourself to Dr. Szymanski. And then around 5:10, we'll wrap up with the last question. So that way, we'll get out in about an hour or so. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and turn it to Dr. Szymanski. I hope everyone gives him a round of applause. So let's welcome him.
Thank you. Thank you, Thomas. And it certainly is a pleasure and a privilege to be here today. I'm really excited about being here at UNF and the opportunity to reach out to the students that are here in the audience as well as those who are watching online in terms of the live stream. You know, I'll take a couple minutes to tell you a little bit about who I am and then what's so exciting about being here at UNF. So who am I? So part of it is, one way of understanding me is to think about this probably being in four buckets. One is that I'm a classical academic. Began with my career with thinking about research and excelling in research and teaching. So I understand the academic experience. I understand what it takes to be a top researcher. I understand what it takes to be a top performer in the classroom. I understand the student perspective of what is excellence in education and how to prepare students. So I think that's an important perspective to bring to the table. Second perspective is I've held administrative positions. As Thomas said, I'm the Dean of the College of Business at the University of Cincinnati. Before that, I ran a Center for Retailing Studies at Texas A&M University, which was the premier retailing center in the country. It gave us an opportunity to bring people to campus, create a destination career of retailing for our students. So it was important to the industry. It was important to our students. A third bucket is I have had the opportunity and unique opportunity to serve as a director for leading companies, for Fortune 500 and Fortune 200 companies. And that brings kind of a unique perspective of what it takes to run a complex organization, think about governance issues in terms of being on governance committees, think about compensation issues, and thinking about how the board functions. But importantly, what a great personal growth experience to be able to sit around a room of really smart, intelligent, successful people and think of how to make the world a better place, and particularly with respect to their company. So that's been fortunate for me. And the last part of it is athletics. So I was a former athlete. I'm sitting down, but I'm taller when I'm standing up. So I played basketball, I played tennis in college. And as a first-generation student, that was my key to a college education. I figured out as a 14-year-old that, you know what, if I excelled in sports, I could probably get scholarships and I could probably go to school. And so rather than looking to my parents and finding ways to finance the education, athletics became my vehicle to being a college graduate. And I also serve on different committees, something called the Faculty Athletic Rep, which looks at the student interest side of this and the academic side of the house with respect to your student athletes. I do that for our university, I do that for our conference, I do that for all Division I student athletes in interacting with the NCAA. So it gives me a rich perspective of what it means to be an academic, what it means to be an administrator, what it means to be a leader of a complex, large corporation and a large business enterprise, and what it also means to think about athletics. What's so exciting about UNF, and I've used this before, is that I think it can be really the next breakout institution, not only in the state of Florida, but on a national level. it's really exciting to think about the possibilities. Where you are today, which has been a great foundation developed by a president who's been very committed and dedicated to the institution. But you have great faculty, you have great students, you have a staff that's also fantastic, but you have people who are really, really, really passionate about their institution. And that's a great building block when you start thinking about the next wave and the next generation and the next version of the institution. So that's really exciting. And you also have an institution that I think can be uniquely North Florida. It's what's right for you and what will work for you as an institution in terms of academic programs and teaching and research and the philosophy behind excellence. You know, you have my perspective is, and what I've heard from other people, and I use this as a springboard, you have this high-touch personal experience. People care. People care about you as students. And that's not, you know, that's not something that you can say about every institution. But it's people thinking about how they can get you involved and how can they make you successful. How can we get you involved in research at an early stage? How can we get you involved in applied sort of studies? And how can we get you involved in these transformational learning opportunities, which is a really great building block. And then the other great building block is really kind of these transformational learning experiences. And what's unique about UNF is that it's located in Jacksonville. People can't duplicate that. You're located in a major urban area. You can think about internships. You can think about co-ops. You can think about bringing people into the classroom. You can think about class projects that are applied and solve problems. And that's really unique. And that's not something other people can duplicate because nobody can duplicate the city. Nobody can duplicate your students. Nobody can duplicate your faculty. So you have this really kind of nice inflection point where you're saying, okay, who do we want to become tomorrow? And that's what people are looking for. They're looking for, as I talk to people, the sense of identity and how to market ourselves. Because we know we're good, and we want other people to know we're good. We want students to come here and be the institution of choice. We want faculty to come here and be the institution of choice. And these are really important to us as we move forward. So a spirit of innovation, you know, is going to be important to the future success of the institution. But the whole idea of building on this commitment that exists, I think it makes it really, really fun and, you know, a fun opportunity. So it may sound like not a sophisticated enough word, but you got to enjoy what you're doing. And so I enjoy the opportunity to try to make a difference. And again, working with the people. And there seems to be this sense of fit. You know, I'm really looking at this place and I'm looking at what UNF has to offer and the community and the students and the facilities. And again, I think it's really poised for greatness. And to be part of that co-visioning and that strategy development to really educate the next wave of students and make phenomenal things happen is something that makes this an attractive opportunity for me and for anyone, to be honest with you. So I think that kind of covers it as far as an opening statement. I'd be happy to answer questions from anybody that might have questions.
All right, so this is the time for the students in the audience to come out to the microphone on your right. So go ahead and give an introduction of yourself.
My name is Moshe, and thank you for coming here. I want to ask you about college athletics. You mentioned that you were part of it. And I want you to answer the question, if you can, in the context of, talk a little bit more about college athletics' role in academia. And also, UNF is not a part of the Power 5 or Power 6. How would that work? And also, regarding a football team, I know that it can be successful, but it can also cost a lot of money and cause issues. So if you can relate to a couple of them.
Yeah, thank you, and thanks for the Power 6. Because most people won't know what you're talking about, but it is the American Athletic Conference that's hoping that there's more than just 5 major conferences, right? So I appreciate your question. So I think the role of athletics is important to the student experience. When I think about the students, I think about the holistic student and the holistic student experience. You know, academics are obviously important and central to who we are, but it's also building that person and building that person that's well-rounded. And athletics brings that to the table. You know, it's not the only thing, but it's one of those important components of what you remember from a college experience. It gives you that opportunity to bond with the team, to root people on, to be a sense of a broader team of individuals. It gives you something to follow, a point of pride. It gives you something that's a point of pride when you're an alum. And by the way, the athletes are really, really, really good students. You have a really high GPA for your student athletes. GPA is around 3.34. You know, it's students who are going to be leaders who are involved, and they bring a rich perspective to the classroom. So when I look at it, I think it plays an important role. I think the football question is an interesting question. I think that's you know, something that I probably can't answer in 2 seconds because It does revolve around finances and goals and objectives and, sort of probabilities of success. It's certainly a topic and a topic that I know has been discussed at the institution and something that I think is worthy of discussion. But I'm not, you sort of have to think about the opportunity costs and so on. So it's a very complex issue to address in a 2-second visit and saying, oh, yes, you need to do this. But I think the role of athletics can be an important one. And even if it's not, sort of SEC and ACC and so on, it really is something that can be a point of pride for the institution. When you think about marketing, for example, you get, airtime and TV and newspapers and so on, and that can be important to you as an institution. So I think it has a role. I think there has to be a proper balance of perspective as an academic institution and academic leader, but I think it can play an important, vital role in terms of defining what your experience is as a student at UNF. Thank you. Did I answer all parts of your question okay? Okay, good. Thank you. Any other questions?
All right.
Okay, so maybe ask one more.
Sure, go ahead. Yeah.
So I think in the past 20 years, the marketing, the branding of the university as a brand really really developed, and branding is very important. What is your view about the branding of an institution? Is it something that should come organically? Do you hire an outside company to do it? Would you do it in the first year of your administration, or you will wait until you define the university better?
So, great question. So we're talking about brand identity, and part of what people have talked about is, do we have a strong enough brand identity? Are we known for things that people know about us, who we are, what we're all about? And the thing is that people, I think, have again deep-seated pride in what the institution is, but maybe other people don't know about it who are on the outside looking in. And so I think, the branding is, do you hire outside people and so on? I think you begin to understand what are some of your strengths. Part of the learning that occurs really over a couple-day period even is an intense learning of who you are and again, what are some of those building blocks. But then also thinking about what makes you unique and distinct. What can you do? What can you become? What are some of your strengths? What are some of the things that other people can't easily duplicate that I think are extremely important to begin defining the brand? One thing I did at the University of Cincinnati around branding is we weren't all that different in terms of UNF. People didn't have a negative reputation in terms of Cincinnati. They didn't have a positive reputation. They just didn't know enough about us. And so you have to make a difference, and you have to help people out. One of the things we did, and one of the things I was leading the charge with and tried to create is a program called PACE, where we want people to know who our students are. So if you're coming to our institution, you're going to recruit our students. On average, what do they look like? Which is branding. What's that microchip that says, here's who your students are? And the PACE program was about professionalism in teaching students to be professional, how to dress and how to act and how to interact and how to shake hands, simple things. And then there's the academic. But the C part was about character. And that's really important. Your sustainable competitive advantage is who you are as a person. If you can help with the character component, thinking about trust and respect and integrity, those are competitive differentiators that will always differentiate you from anybody else. And the last part is an experiential part, which is, I think, again, back to transformational learning kinds of things that you can capitalize here at the University of North Florida. And so I think these kinds of initiatives of thinking about this, and I think it is the organic part of it, which is listening to people and talking about it, and what are your viewpoints, and what do we want to be known for, and what does this sound like to you, and how about this, and what are some of the other opportunities, but making sure that you have this collective, this makes sense for us as an institution, and getting people on board is part of this. Professional organizations, I think that's sometimes their branding is really about consistency and promotion and communication, as opposed to what should we be. But you can have facilitators that can make that happen, right? You can gather the information and begin to coalesce it. But I think it is a grassroots. I think it's having everybody involved and thinking about what the future looks like and where do we want to go as an institution and what do we want to be known for. It's not necessarily always the outcome thing, but if someone's considering us, why would they consider us? Why would we be a destination institution? The notion of high touch and experiential learning, those are kinds of building blocks that you can begin talking about in consideration. And it may be ultimately what is the differentiator in the brand identity, because it can differentiate you from institutions of 50, 60,000 where they can't really talk about a high touch, kind of culture and one that really has a very extensive internship or co-op program. Does that help?
Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thanks for your questions.
All right, are there any other students who would like to ask Dr. Szymanski some questions? Yeah.
Sure.
Come up to the
Feel free.
microphone, introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Alex Torres-Perez. I'm a senior student here.
Okay.
And my question kind of relates to a couple of incidents that happened here on campus last semester.
Okay.
So last semester, I'm not sure if you're aware, but we had a racist video that went viral as well as Nazis that came to our campus. So my question to you is, what would you do if a certain situation like this were to happen again?
Yeah, so I'm not intimately familiar with those incidents because obviously, I wasn't here, but I've heard about them from a distance. I think you begin with student safety and faculty safety and address those issues immediately, and I mean immediately, so that you make sure that you have a safe environment for everybody, that there's not some sort of threatening situation. And I always think you begin with that. Is it going to be a safe campus? Is there anything that we need to do? And then the other part of it is that you begin to address these issues. You should, and I know you do, have a team that's sort of your emergency response team. Not only do you have the person who's in charge of campus security thinking these issues through and sort of thinking about protocol and what you do, but you think about how do we handle this and how do we respond to this. And so it's not always a clear one-way answer to this because it gets viral very quickly. So what would the experts say? What do you think you should do? What would make sense for us as an institution? How do you quickly respond and delimit this and delimit the impact? And also thinking about what are the implications now? Because part of this, there's a danger in terms of you think about when these kinds of things happen. Spencer is a good example of this. And we're dealing with those issues at the University of Cincinnati. Is he invited? Is he coming? So there's the physical part of this, and then there's the emotional part of this. What does this mean for students, and how are they thinking, and how do they feel threatened? What kinds of things do we need to do in terms of programs and initiatives and other things that allow people to coalesce and talk about these issues and express those. So I think you in a way you step up, and that's the real key part of this, because there's going to be something else somewhere else that may be the same, may not be the same. But do you step up and take quick action? Do you get command of the situation very quickly? Do you, first of all, you make sure that everybody's safe and there's nothing going to happen, and then you have to address these issues to make sure that not only do you have PR issues that you reach out to people and talk about this is not who we are and what we stand for as an institution, but then you also want to make sure that you think about the students and how they're feeling at this particular point in time, to make sure that they're that they have opportunities to get together and vet, and we can help them work through this issue. So it's a little bit of a generic answer because it really is about being responsive. And again, making sure people are safe, thinking through the student issues, thinking about, whether it's parents, it's community, and so on. But these are not, trivial issues that you address. But again, making sure that you've also thought these things through, prepared as an institution in case similar kinds of things happen. The two-second part of this is Rudy Giuliani with 9/11 in New York City. As he talked about it, he was prepared for this. He wasn't prepared for that, but he was prepared for something so that the emergency response team knew how to step up and knew how to respond. Do you have the protocol? And I've asked this question of the administrative staff, and there's a lot of confidence in the chief of police in terms of what he does and how he operates and his knowledge and his expertise. So you rely on that, but you also reach out to others who are even more expert in this, who have done this before, have gone through these situations, to make sure you've thought everything through, that you covered essentially all your bases to help people out and to make it a safe environment.
And have you actually ever had any controversial issues happen at your university, and how did you help handle those?
Yeah, I think, so the answer is not like this.
Yeah.
Spencer wanting to come to our campus after he's gone to Florida is something that people are dealing with. We've had different situations where, we've had a tragedy of a police officer shooting an unarmed minority, and so that's gained a lot of notoriety in press. And as you do this, you think about who you are and what you stand for, and you talk about the value system that you really have. You try to connect with students. You try to be there for the students who are upset and try to help people understand. You have the professionals and the counselors and others get involved, and you reach out. And you do your best to again, sort of cope with this and think it through. You don't always have the answers. Nobody has all the answers. But you want to show the sensitivity, the compassion, the empathy to make sure that everybody's okay eventually, or at least begins to understand and comprehend, and also understand that these kinds of things do not define who you are as an institution.
Yeah.
Does that
So,
help?
yes, it does. I know I'm asking a
Go
couple of
ahead.
questions.
No, that's fine.
But when these events did happen here on campus, students were really upset about it, and rightfully so.
Right.
But one thing is, as president, you're going to have a role not only towards the student, but to the administration. So how would you try and balance, when it comes to something controversial, your role with the students and your priority with the administration as well?
So I don't think there should be a conflict, unless you knew that there was a conflict. So I won't ask you too much about sort of the history. Maybe we could talk offline. But I think you have an administration. Your role as the president is to establish the culture of the institution. And here's who we are and here's who we stand for. You know, and what you have with the rest of the administration is that you begin to develop that same kind of culture, and so they should understand. I don't think there should be anything that, you know, would say the administration is in conflict with the students, because you should be student-centered. You begin every day thinking about the students and thinking about the experience and thinking about what the students are going through. And, you know, and it become, you know, it should be part of your culture. It should be who you are. It should be what you stand for as not only as an institution, but as a leader. And so I don't think there, you know, again, I would be shocked in terms of we haven't had those kinds of incidents, but you have incidents on a smaller scale every day in some respects. And it's usually that sense of team. You know, if you have a sense of team, people are on board, you know, and by the way, that team steps up. And, you know, they understand that all of a sudden life is different. What do we need to do? How do we check in? You know, we had not these kinds of incidences, but we've had study abroad students at places where train stations have gotten bombed internationally. What do we do? We got students stranded. There's no transportation out. They're in different cities. They can't fly out of that same place. They can't transport out of that safe place. How do we keep them safe? And that's when your team steps up and does the right thing. And they understand what that right thing is, which is take care of the students. So, you know, ultimately, when you're making these kinds of decisions, it's about the safety of the students. So I can't imagine a situation where administrators would be opposed to and be at odds with the notion of student safety.
And then finally,
Uh-huh.
these events also kind of might deter students from actually applying here at UNF, especially minority students.
Right.
How would you try and actively try to recruit these students to still come at UNF despite these 1 in a million chances of these things happening?
Yeah, and some of it is just, you know, part of it is reaching out and letting people know this is not who we are and this is not who we stand for. You know, people come on these campuses and you go, this is not who we are. I mean, here's who we are and here's who we're really about. Some of it is the one-on-one. You know, it can be the president issuing the statements and being in front of people, not just issuing a statement and here's our press release, but actually being the face of the institution and reaching out to people who need the help, who need to hear from somebody who's a leader, but also making sure all your key contact people are getting the message out to people who might be concerned. You know, sometimes it's actually picking up the phone. We've had people in certain instances, you know, in some cases in a certain college, and I've had people reach and go, is that who you are too as a college? And the answer is no. Here's who we are, here's what we stand for. And we've had multiple people reach out to the same people who was somebody who was applying to our university and heard about some person in some other discipline that did something. And so it is being proactive. It is reaching out. It's multiple people reaching out to let people know that this is who we are and this is what we're all about. And we want you to come. And it is a safe environment. And here's what we're going to do for you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for the questions.
All right.
Any other questions?
Any further questions from students?
Sure, come on up.
One last question.
Sure.
Can you talk about a little bit about your philosophy as a leader? So the first part would be visibility. How visible are you planning to be on campus? Are you planning to go to basketball games, help in moving day? And the second part is, if you will be president, there will be the vice presidents are probably the most important people. Would you go in and try? How would you? Do you believe that you can go in with people that are already in their position and trust them with your vision, or change, or you want to change stuff? What is your philosophy?
Okay. first, the notion of visibility is really critical. And there's two fronts of this. So there's the internal visibility of being on campus and being visible and also being accessible to people. And so, you know, I always have an open door policy, and it's an opportunity for people to come. You also have to think about people's schedules and how to purposely become visible to different organizations and different groups. So what I make sure happens is that while there's the accidental, incidental, you sort of roam around kind of thing, there's also making sure that you're getting the feedback that you need, and making sure that you touch different groups. And so I make sure that I schedule breakfasts and lunches with undergraduate students, with graduate students, with staff, with assistant professors, with tenured professors, with all the groups of people that we have, underrepresented students, students who are part of our honors programs, students who are not part of our honors programs. Because it's all about the spirit of what can I do? How can I make things better for you? What are some of the things that you like? What are some of the things you don't like? And how can we institute change to make it an excellent experience for you? So there's that internal part, but there's also the very external part of that. What's increasingly important for anybody who's a president is to reach out to the communities and different communities and be visible within that. So you're also the ambassador for UNF to everybody in the outside world. Building those ties to Jacksonville and the different constituencies in Jacksonville, extremely, extremely important to the future success of the university. From the standpoint not only of fundraising, which is extremely critical, but from student experiences and the opportunity for students to have internships and co-ops and jobs, and also for people to bring in, not only from a fundraising perspective, like you think it's just nice to have fundraising, but it's also about scholarships, right? And helping students afford college. It's also about, sponsoring centers and giving money to colleges so they can grow programs and hire faculty and have resources so that there can be student experiences and faculty experiences with respect to research. So it's really 100% and 100% job. So if you ask me what percentage, it's 100% internal and 100% external. And I think that's really important. And you have to be comfortable with multiple constituencies, and you have to embrace those multiple roles, because it is a complex job. But you have to love the student part of it. You have to love the faculty part of it. And you want to resonate with them. And you have to like building bridges to the communities, because it's absolutely important for attracting students, attracting resources, but also creating an enriched environment in which the students, in which your people in your community live. So I think those are real important. I think the notion of, when you come in, you make assessments. And there's some people that, you're going to probably, your question is, so who are you going to get rid of and who are you going to keep, right? Whereas that's not the issue.
Not exactly that, but like, do you believe that the people that are in place, you try to work with them to have your vision go for, or maybe, yes.
That's
so
right.
That was my question.
Yeah, what you find out and what you do is you interact with people. There'll be people at different career stages, and maybe they're here to help you with the transition, and they realize that, this is not what I want to do much longer, and so you sometimes have that. But what I think you do is you get people excited and you get people motivated. Part of what you have to do is get people, to be passionate. So the good news is when I talk to the people here, and I talk to vice presidents and deans and department heads and so on, the provosts, they're passionate about the institution, and they want this further direction. So they're, it's not like, okay, what are you going to do? Arms crossed. It's like arms open and mind open, and so you talk about an openness and an open-mindedness. And so what's really exciting is that there is this open-mindedness. And what can we become? And how can we do things better? And how can we take it to the next level? And how can we be great? And so you can work with that, right? And so what makes me excited is that you keep hearing the same kind of tone in people's voices. We want to be great. We love what we're doing. We have a passion. We have a dedication and commitment to the institution. And that's phenomenal. So I think you then begin saying, okay, so, that's where you start thinking about the listening sessions, back to your earlier question. Okay, what do we want to become? How can we become that? And part of leadership is to help mold and shape and define and lead that, right? And people are hungry for that next step in the process. And so that's what makes it exciting. So I think you can get people on board.
I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Sure, thank you. Any other questions?
If there are any more questions, come on up.
Sure.
Good evening.
Hi, how you doing?
Good, thank you. I have some few questions for you.
Okay.
My first question would be, why UNF? Why did you choose UNF?
Why UNF?
Yes.
Yeah, so I covered it a little bit at the very beginning, And I've hopefully shared some of those perspectives with you, but it really is about, I really just think it's on the cusp of phenomenal things. And I think it's an exciting place to be when you look at, again, the faculty, the students, the staff, the facilities. It really is exciting. And the opportunity to think about, expanding partnerships with the city and enriching academic programs because of that, and bringing people on board and getting new people excited about your institution. It really makes it, kind of one of those great places to be. And then there's just kind of that subtlety that you can't really articulate because sort of bounded rationality principles, but it just feels good. I mean, it really is one of those, you wish you had a better way of articulating that, but it just feels like a place that you can wrap your arms around and move people in the right direction. Because as I tell people, I'm in the opportunity business. And that was my discovery one day. What business am I in? And if I do my job really, really, really well, I create opportunities for other people. I create opportunities for students to be phenomenal. I create opportunities for faculty to also be outstanding and phenomenal. I create opportunities for staff to grow. And so I look at this and I go, this is a great opportunity because I think you can do these things, right? And I think there's the foundation there and the core that's there to actually do even more, even do greater things, but actually make it a more phenomenal experience.
As you can see, many students aren't here. What kind of message does that send to you?
It sends a message that this is Friday and it's really late and students are normal here because this is life's busy, and so it doesn't send a negative message. I understand the context and I understand that it is Friday and it's late in the day and it's okay. So that doesn't mean that students aren't passionate, that they don't care. This may not be the best, sometimes the best forum to reach students, but it's about reaching out to students in other kinds of ways through student government and organizations and kind of meeting students where they are as opposed to asking students to come where you are. So, but it doesn't, I'm good, kind of thing. So, again, it's human and it's natural and it's Friday and it's late and, people have other places to be. So I fully understand that.
We have a very campus active right now. Do you have any creative ideas of how to make the campus even more active?
And active would be in terms of?
In terms of, for example, students being here on a Friday night.
Yeah, so I think Friday night's always difficult, so I wouldn't use, but I think it's, it's sort of creating that greater sense of community. I think you've probably made progress from being really commuter to being not so commuter. The housing helps in having people, more and more students live here and live on campus, and as the master plan begins to develop with more housing, it creates another kind of level of vibrancy. I think some of the athletics in terms of what's happening creates a vibrancy. I think there's a baseball game this evening. There's a basketball game yesterday that'll draw people to campus. And I think it's having and being sensitive to the students and saying, what kinds of activities could we have that would be interesting to you? And it's not just one type of activity. It could be, looking at the music school and what kinds of things could we be doing. It could be looking at performing arts and what kinds of things that we're doing. It could be looking at things and saying we need greater dialogue around sensitive issues, and what could we do to make that happen? And, and then also looking to the students and saying, this is targeted to you. Here's our group and we want to make this inclusive. So what could we do? So I think it's looking at the calendar, it's looking at student organizations, it's looking at things that students want and bringing them to campus and getting them to say. And also being realistic about what time slots would work and how can we make that work. Because, you know this, and maybe it's one of your questions somewhere down the line, but a lot of students work, and they have jobs. And so how can we make them feel included? How can we create events that also include all those students who have all these competing demands on their time?
Thank you. You described as well athletics and academics being important for UNF. Do you have two priorities that you want to tackle down at UNF, that you want to have, make possible? Two top priorities for you at UNF.
I think an immediate priority that I'd like to see at some point in time is back to the experiential learning and making that, something that's a focal point. And the reason I say that is I come from an institution that cooperative education experiences, these transformational learning experiences, are core to who we are. And what you find out is that students who have 3 or more experiences, in particularly professional jobs or internships or co-ops, they earn at least $11,000 more as a starting salary. So they're much more employable, which is important because you think about student debt and those kinds of issues. But they also grow as individuals and become really smart. So thinking about making those partnerships happen, reaching out to Jacksonville as a city, developing those ties are synergistic. There are 2 priorities: reaching out and then thinking about learning experiences for students. But I think those should be always top priorities.
Okay, and UNF has an independent news organization that covers UNFs. They cover the good, the bad, news around UNF. How important do you think an independent college news source is to a healthy college experience?
Yeah, I think it's, we live in a transparent society now, right? So we talked about, excuse me, social media and things being covered. It's fine, it's acceptable, it's normal, it's part of the vibrancy of the institution. It's part of what makes it special. Hopefully it's constructive and you work together and partner, and there's things that you're doing to make the environment better. And so I don't know the negative, necessarily the positive and so on, but it should be one that's not adversarial, obviously. But what can we do, and how can we work together? And here's a story, and what can we do about this? And, here's an incident. What can we do about this, right? So you have to be open as an administration. It's not that you're closed door. It's really that you're back to this notion of open-minded. So I think it's fine. I mean, I think it's part of the fabric of the institution. What makes it unique and distinct and contributes to its vibrancy.
And my last question.
Sure.
How important is it to you to have a university that's culturally diverse?
Yeah, it's extremely important. It's if you get to know me and you look a little bit at my vita and my record and things that we're doing, diversity and inclusion is front and center, and people know that. It's a priority at our college. It's a priority when we're hiring people. It's a priority in terms of our programs. It's a priority in terms of our fundraising. We've done some things that I'm really proud of. One is I created this program called the Business Fellows Program, which was to attract underrepresented students. We live in a city that's a little bit more challenged with respect to recruiting diverse students to our campus, and so we wanted to be purposeful and intentional. And the Business Fellows Program is not just about recruiting students to your institution. It's about ensuring that they're successful. It's about the holistic student. It's about the social network. It's about the support that people need to be successful. It's a program where you think about seniors being mentors to freshmen and juniors being mentors to sophomores. It's a program where you think about community and people coming together and having a support network. It's a program where you think about bringing people in from the outside community who are adults and professionals, and people who are young professionals and people who are very senior professionals, to also serve as role models and mentors and to be there for students who want to be successful. And the fun part about this, and the proud moments of these things is not only are we getting students to come, and I still don't think we're getting them to come in the numbers that we want, but they're better than before, is that the student retention rate is normally 100%. And the students who come and students who are successful are people who are student body presidents. They're people who are reported by the governor to be part of the board of trustees. These are leaders on our campus. And so we're trying to make a difference. And sometimes it's a small difference that leads to a great difference. But it's part of who we are. And now what we're able to do, because we've demonstrated that we're serious about what we're doing, and that it's not just, it's not just verbal, it's really actions that are making a difference, is we're starting to raise funds and people are starting to give. And so we have our first $1 million gift, and then we have our second $1 million gift, and then we have a $500,000 gift, and then we have a donor who's talking about the multi-million-dollar gift. And it's really about scholarships for minority and underrepresented students. It's about money that we can use to create a summer bridge program for students who could normally get in to the program because there's, ACT scores and GPA, things, but our high potential students who we want to make sure that they're set up for success and can get into our institution. And so it is a front and center priority. It's hiring a more diverse faculty, where we've increased the percentage of women faculty for sure by a significant portion. As we've tripled the size of our faculty, we've grown the percentage double digits, more than double digits with respect to women faculty. It's because you got to begin to appreciate the role that a diverse faculty and a diverse student body play in this sharing of perspectives and having multiple voices. And this diversity is extremely critical to critical thinking skills and analytical skills, and to people's success in the future, where it becomes naturally occurring that you're in this mosaic, because that's the world today, and that'll be the world tomorrow too. So it's a top priority in my institution, and people understand that, and we've worked towards that. Created a diversity officer, and a person who's part of the team reports directly to me. And it's not just we created a diversity officer. We have somebody fantastic who knows that she's been tasked with making a difference. It's not about just being there. It's about what can we do that's innovative to lead the institution and to do things that no one else is doing in the country. And that's our goal, and that's our ambition.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Do you have another question? All right, go ahead.
Okay, so I'm going to follow up to a question she asked. I know that you said because it's Friday night, not a lot of students are going to be here, and that's understandable, but it's actually been like this all week for all the candidates.
Okay.
There's only been like a small handful of students. So what message does that send to you overall, knowing that it's been like this all week?
So that's good. It's a good question. Let's assume it's something negative. Then you start saying, okay, what's the deficiency? I don't know that it is, but let's assume that it is. And that is to sort of think about, how do we build a sense of community, and how do we build student interest, and how do we build a level of enthusiasm and excitement that's also a sense of involvement. You know, how do we identify those leaders, and how do we create leadership? Because the leadership is also somebody who's going to care, and it's going to be involved, and it's going to be here. You know, although everybody could be watching it. You know, it's convenient to do this online, right? And not to have to worry about parking and getting shuttled in and all those kinds of things. But it is creating that sense of community that I think is really important. I think there's an opportunity, for example, to think about the Taylor Center for Leadership and their initiatives, and saying, how come that isn't a part of the fabric of everything that we do as an institution, so that students begin to care and they understand what it takes to be true leaders. I mean, you're certainly showing a level of commitment and dedication to be here and want to be here. But at the same time, I think there's other people who probably have that intention, who are not, sort of not caring by not being here. But how can we help them, and how can we create that energy and that enthusiasm? And I think that's part of the leader. A leader at an institution has to create that culture, that sense of pride, that sense of involvement. Foster that. Identify leaders who create other leaders, and kind of create that sort of mass excitement. So I don't know. I'm not saying there's an absence of that just because of today. You'd have to tell me that, sort of offline, where you think the gaps are. But the important part is if there is a gap, leadership's role is to say, okay, what can we do about that? And how can we change that? And how can we facilitate things? And how can we make it better than it was, yesterday? Because this is important. Student involvement, student interactions, commitment, hearing the student voice, is important. Are we hearing that? Are we doing that? Are we reaching back to students? Are we getting them committed? Are we getting them excited? So I talk fast when I get enthusiastic, right? But it is creating that sense of excitement and pride in who you are. So, it's okay. It is what it is. But then you sit there and say, okay, the attribution is to yourself as a leader. What can we do? What do we need to do? How can we change? Let's assume that it's as simple as it's, a culture of, students being commuters is not. What is that thing that creates the involvement? What are the activities that we can do to bring students back on campus, get them to stay longer? What is that we could do that no one else could do to create that spirit of vibrancy that we think is important to the success of the institution? So it's a little bit of a question, but it is also this notion of solving a problem and thinking about a solution. So while we point things out, as I tell people, it's great to be thinking about being critical and pointing out deficiencies. The people and the person who's always valued, and student who's always valued, and the employee who's always valued is the one that can solve the problem. So what are some of the solutions to this? And the fun part is to think about, okay, what could we do that's new, that's creative, that's different, that creates a sense of excitement and spirit, here today and every day.
Thank you.
Yeah, sure. Thanks for the question.
All right. If there are no more questions from the audience, I'm gonna go ahead and ask a question myself.
Okay, sure.
So, assuming you were to become our next president, what is something that you want our university and graduates to be known for by the end of your tenure?
So I think there's probably many things. I think you want to be known as people of character, people of integrity, people who respect others, people who understand hard work, and I think you all do that. So I'm actually talking about points that I think are already here. But I think you want to know who the essence is of the individual. And so while we train people academically, again, back to sort of a notion of what's your competitive advantage. The competitive advantage is who you are as an individual and what is your value system. And so I want us to be known as students who are different, who are distinct, who are unique, who are people you want to be with and be around, people who you can depend on to get things done, people who work and understand and are great team players. And so it is about the character. And I think the character part is really what will distinguish the institution, down the road. The academics are really, really important, so don't mistake that. But I think the character part of it and who we are and who we stand for and what we're all about are extremely important to the future of the institution and in terms of getting that message out of, let me tell you about the UNF student and who they are.
All right, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if there are no more questions, I guess we're going to wrap up a little bit early. Thank you, Dr. Szymanski.
Thank you, Thomas.
Yeah, you've been doing all sorts of things the last couple of days. So we'll give you like a little break before the next session. There is going to be a public forum upstairs at 5:30 that is open to anyone. So to those of you who are watching, if you want to actually come out and see Dr. Szymanski in person, come out at 5:30. It's upstairs in the ballroom C&D of the Student Union. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you for the students that are here, and thank you for the people who are watching online. I really appreciate it and appreciate the opportunity to be here. And look forward to hopefully having further discussions and further interactions with you. But thank you very much.